In the next hour, the Chancellor has been accused of misleading the public over the state of the nation's finances. It's emerged that the OBR told Rachel Reeves weeks before her budget statement that Treasury receipts were significantly higher than expected, meaning that there was no black hole to fill and no need to put up taxes to record highs. Elsewhere, President Donald Trump has vowed to pause all immigration to the US from what he calls third world countries. This comes after an Afghan refugee is accused of the shooting of 2 members of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Trump also threatened to remove citizenship from migrants who are disruptive. But would this undermine the very Western values that he wants to protect? And it's another U-turn, but a welcome one for employers. In a blow to the Labour left, the Prime Minister has announced that the Employment Rights Bill will no longer include day one rights for workers. But the bill still contains numerous controversial measures, including a banter ban. And the French authorities have agreed to start intercepting small boats in the Channel, but only if they're not carrying migrants. Plus ça change. And joining me to debate all these topics tonight, I've got my panel, the pollster and academic Matt Goodwin and political commentator Kevin Craig. But first, the latest news headlines.
Good evening. It's just gone 6 o'clock. These are your headlines. Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride is calling for the Chancellor to resign. It comes as Rachel Reeves has been accused of misleading the public by making the country's economic situation appear in a worse state than it really was in the run-up to the budget. A letter from the Office for Budget Responsibility, published today, revealed that the Chancellor was told as early as the 17th of September that the projected £20 billion black hole would actually be much smaller. Downing Street denies Rachel Reeves misled the public about the state of the public finances. The US Department of Justice is upgrading charges for the Afghan man suspected of shooting and killing a National Guard member and wounding another to first-degree murder. It comes after the president paid tribute to 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom as a highly respected and magnificent person. She was one of the 2 Guard members shot on Wednesday. The other National Guard member, Andrew Wolfe, who was attacked, remains in a critical condition. The suspected gunman is also in a serious condition. Elsewhere, Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff has resigned after an anti-corruption investigation. It's after Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies raided his apartment in Kyiv's government quarters early this morning. And Yermak said on social media that, from my side, there is full cooperation. The Ukrainian leader has now also announced a reshuffle of his presidential office after the result of Andriy Yermak's departure. Meanwhile, the US is poised to recognise Russia's control over Crimea and other occupied Ukrainian territories to secure a deal to end the war. That's according to the Telegraph newspaper. It's understood that Donald Trump has sent his peace envoy, Steve Witkoff, and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to make the direct offer to Vladimir Putin in Moscow. The plan to recognise territory, which breaks US diplomatic convention, is likely to go ahead, despite concerns among Ukraine's European allies. In other news, French police are reportedly going to start stepping up intercepting migrant boats crossing the English Channel following months of arguments with the UK over the danger of such operations. It comes as French newspaper Le Monde says they have obtained an official document signed by 4 prefects responsible for beaches around Calais and Dunkirk, from which thousands of migrants head off to England every year. And prostate cancer screening should not be made routinely available for the vast majority of men in the UK, according to a committee advising the government. Sir Chris Hoy has said he's disappointed and saddened by the decision. The 49-year-old revealed last year his prostate cancer had spread to his bones and that doctors gave him between 2 and 4 years to live. It's understood that Health Secretary Wes Streeting is examining the evidence around the decision. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
Thank you, Sophia, and welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Miriam Cates. And joining me until 7 o'clock, I've got my panel, the pollster, academic and GB News presenter Matt Goodwin and political commentator Kevin Craig. And, of course, please do get your views in at gbnews.com/your-say. Now, in big news this evening, Rachel Reeves is under mounting pressure after fresh claims that she misrepresented the state of the UK economy, with the OBR now admitting that there wasn't any justification for Wednesday's sweeping tax hikes. Well, the fiscal watchdog revealed that it told the Chancellor back in September that the alleged black hole she cited to defend almost £30 billion in tax rises was in reality only around £2.5 billion. In other words, the black hole does not appear to have existed at all. Well, the revelation may have political consequences for Rachel Reeves, but there's also been economic fallout. As the former chief economist of the Bank of England, Andy Haldane, has pointed out, we've had month after month of speculation, and that's been costly for the economy. It's caused paralysis among business and consumers. It's the single biggest reason why growth has flatlined. It's been grounded in the second half of the year. So turning to my panel, Kevin, let's start with you. It seems like Rachel Reeves was playing political games here, but I don't understand why. If she'd raised more tax than she expected, she could have claimed that as a victory and not needed to go back for more.
Well, Miriam, if GB News ever wonders why the Chancellor doesn't call Christopher Hope, the editor of this channel, the hysteria that has gripped the station this afternoon is an example. And I'll tell you what my position is, which is the OBR, listeners and viewers need to know, it never said that there was no need for tax measures. And it is dishonest of this channel and it's the Mail and the Telegraph to say so. My position, and it will be of many others, is that what the OBR actually said, it provides forecasts and not political judgments. The budget that the Chancellor put forward, which is not being talked about today, was about freezes to rail fares, the rising wages to millions of people across the country, cuts to energy bills and tackling the debt level of this country and the NHS and the cost of living. And what's going on this afternoon is a total attempt to whip up a political attack on the Chancellor when she was totally transparent about the forecast she was using and the measures that she set out and costed.
Kevin,
so there's nothing to see here.
I completely respect your view that this is hysteria, but it is not confined to GB News. All the papers are reporting it. The Guardian are leading with official forecasters chair says Chancellor knew about the revised predictions, leads with the headline, OBR challenges the claims that Rachel Reeves dropped income tax rise. So it is not just the right-wing media.
Specifically, one second, Matt. Miriam, the Guardian is not saying that the OBR said there was no need for the tax measures, which has been running all after. OK, no need. Yeah, but it's massively important because the listeners and viewers who are out there living real lives and working jobs and coming home, they would believe all of this and think there's some Watergate scandal, and there isn't.
Hang on a second. Firstly, this is on the front page of every national newspaper as we come on air. I don't think you'd say the Institute for Fiscal Studies is a very anti-Labour institute. Well, sorry, you've had your bit. Let me talk, OK? The IFS are saying publicly they think Rachel Reeves has lied to the country. And the reason that it matters for the people viewing this show and for millions of people in this country is because they've also now been clobbered with another £30 billion of tax rises, largely to subsidise people who don't want to work and people who are not even from this country, because Rachel Reeves led them down some dodgy path, making up a narrative that wasn't based in reality. Look at the timeline. September 17th, the OBR gives initial forecast to the Treasury showing that higher tax revenues have wiped out the £21 billion of productivity downgrade that Rachel Reeves said was the reason that she had to introduce tax rises. October 31st, the OBR's last pre-measures forecasts are handed over. Rachel Reeves is told she is meeting her fiscal rules with £4 billion of headroom. So why then...
Are you asking me a question at the end of this that I can respond to, just to be clear, Matt?
Is everyone who's watching this show, why have you just sent the tax burden in this country up to the highest level on record based on lies? Right,
it's not lies. She set out a fully costed budget, OK? And what's going on here, and I can say this as a signed-up entrepreneur, capitalist, the creator of a multi-million-pound business who pays taxes and employs people. There are many. Jason Stockwood is a minister in Rachel Reeves' Treasury team who comes from a working-class background. background in Grimsby and founded a multi-million-pound company. I am. The lies. OK, great question. Sorry, Miriam. Just to go back to Matt's issue about lies, the OBR saying that there was no need for tax measures, to say that is a lie. That's a lie. They haven't said it.
Kevin, I think the pinpoint for me, though, is not that the budget was or wasn't fully costed. Obviously, there's a full report published early that explains the costings. It's not that. It's that she laid the pitch, she rolled the pitch at that extraordinary press conference a few weeks before the budget, saying that we're all going to have to pull together because of all these terrible headwinds, and she blamed Brexit and all other things. But we now know that she knew that wasn't actually going to be necessary. I'm not arguing the budget wasn't costed, but I'm arguing that when she made that speech, she knew that wasn't actually necessary.
Well, budgets are prepared, and you know this because you're a former Conservative Member of Parliament, right? So you've got experience in government. You were very well respected when you were in there, and you know that budgets are prepared over months. So the forecast that a Chancellor or the team receives, it's over a long period of time, OK? And she has to take the political judgment. And where I will agree with you, you go back to that press conference, I've publicly said some of the news management has been shambolic of the government in recent weeks. But ultimately, what the viewers and listeners need to decide is, do they approve of the measures in the budget? And some people don't like the changes to the two-child benefit cap. Now, Reform, which I think is your party, Matt, was in favour of it and isn't now.
Whoa. There's a difference.
Hang on, you've had your bit. You've had your bit. I heard that. You said to me, you've had your bit. No. Well, no, he didn't let me. He didn't let me. He said you've had your bit, Kev.
I know, but then you have now... Come on, I'm refereeing this. You have now had a chance to defend...
Just so everyone at home is aware, what the Labour Party are doing is they're taking off the cap, so they're going to essentially provide more welfare, mainly, to be frank, for families of Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Nigerian heritage.
Is that
are
true?
More likely,
mainly?
Look at the numbers.
Mainly?
Can I finish?
I'm asking you to justify your stat.
Can I finish?
I'm asking you to justify your stat.
If you look at the research that came out yesterday, it shows very clearly those are the families most likely to have three or more children, and they're often in Labour areas. What is Reform saying? Reform is saying, yes, they'll take the cap off, but for British parents who are working. Okay. There is a key difference. We have to have more babies in this society if we're going to ensure this country survives. Labour, you've turned our national welfare state into an international welfare state, which the people at home are having to subsidise and pay for. Why are they paying £10 billion a year on welfare benefits for people who aren't British?
OK, so a couple of things.
Why?
Well, hang on, let's go back to your point. You said that the two-cap benefit, the two-child benefit cap, you said, which, let's be honest, will apply mainly to families of whatever ethnic origin. That's not correct.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. Yes. Well, we'll have to fact-check it.
Hang on a minute. There is a difference between families of ethnic minority origin are disproportionately likely to claim and the overall share of the budget.
Thank you.
And I think we would actually need to see the actual figures.
Right. Thank you very much. And so the big picture, which I'm very happy to debate, is a government that is taking difficult measures to turn around the economy. And there's no debate. I'm sorry, it might be uncomfortable, but there were big fiscal pressures inherited from the large government, and there will be a long time to turn this around. And on welfare, Matt, I am comfortable as somebody who likes aspiration and making money that there have been hundreds of... You can laugh, but you've got no substance to it, mate. I am comfortable in a society where we are not punishing children in poverty for the mistakes of their parents, whilst at the same time, over there on the far left, Labour is getting a ton of grief from the Greens and other extremists for some of the more sensible measures we've taken on the economy.
Sorry, this idea that this is a budget for aspiration... It is. This idea that this budget is somehow helping...
More companies to list in London?
No, I'm sorry.
It's a fact. It's a fact. There's measures in the budget to encourage companies to list on stock exchanges in our country.
Mary, can I just say something, please, and just end this fantasy land that is being presented to us? You've just clobbered this country over 2 budgets with £70 billion of tax rises. You are forcing workers, small businesses in this country, to subsidise people who don't work, they live on welfare, they're not contributing to the economy, while also flooding this country with low-skilled, low-wage migrants from outside of Europe.
Matt, the country... we haven't talked about the reduction in migration figures that's happening under this government's watch.
Let's talk about that, because
Because it doesn't
migration is down.
It doesn't suit the narrative.
Well,
your party, let's be clear, your party, you are destroying...
interrupted our chair there.
You're destroying this country. You're destroying this economy.
Let's talk about specifics. So, net migration is down. That is true, and there are certain types of migration that are significantly down. For example, the care worker visa that the last government reduced. But the gross migration figures are still very, very high, and what's shifted the net migration down is the number of people, particularly British people, who are leaving the country. So I don't think it's time that we actually talked about gross immigration rather than just sticking to the net migration figure.
Well, yes, but what I predicted before on this channel is, as soon as Labour starts to get a grip on things like use of asylum hotels and certain aspects of migration, the debate will then attempt to shift. And historically, the numbers are still high, but it's 16 months in and progress in the right direction because the Labour government knows that it matters.
There's no progress.
But there is.
Matt,
The use of hotels, just so people know, sorry, the use of hotels is up 23%. We've never had... There are record numbers of asylum applications being made in this country. Asylum seekers now represent about 40% of all net migration into this country. And you're sitting here talking about a success story.
Yes, because the cost is going down.
Reform have talked about net zero migration, so your policy. But given how difficult it's been to control or even predict how many people come in each year, because it's not an easy thing to predict. You don't know how much demand there's going to be for particular visas. How would you ensure over a period of time that you have net zero migration?
Well, I think there's lots of things we need to do. We need to leave the European... Well, firstly, there are two issues. One is how do we control the borders, which Labour are failing to do, and the second is how do we reshape legal migration, which has been completely...
But how do you do that? Because the last government proved that if you set a particular salary cap, you then can't predict exactly how many people will apply for visas.
But the first broad point we need to do is do what neither Labour nor the Tories have done, which is stand up to global corporates and lobbyists who constantly pressure governments into lowering salary thresholds and flooding this country with Deliveroo drivers while we're losing British professionals to Italy, to Dubai, to Estonia. We need to basically ensure that we can get to a high-skill migration policy of much lower numbers of people who are coming in and people coming from culturally compatible nations. What Labour are doing is what the Tories are doing. They've lowered the salary thresholds, flooded the country with low-skilled, low-wage workers from outside of Europe who have brought many of their relatives in. And to be frank, I think it is... You know, the numbers this week were so depressing to me. We've lost 100,000 Brits and we've replaced them with Deliveroo drivers and illegal migrants from Eritrea. And you're sitting here like this is a success story. You are changing this country in ways that really should make the Labour Party hang its head in shame. It's absolutely outrageous what you're doing.
OK, so I'm going to come back on that. So let's go to a couple of things you said, because you're quite angry at global corporates.
Yes.
Do you mean global corporates like Nvidia and JP Morgan Chase, who are investing billions of pounds in this country and creating jobs?
I mean the way in which both Labour and the Tories for 30 years have put big business ahead of the interests of British people.
So you're against the businesses, the global corporates, as you call them, which are international companies that are crucial for the lives of people listening and watching this tonight. You're against them.
You know as well as I do. You know as well as I do. You don't need to smirk. Big business
I'm not smirking.
has undercut.
You shouldn't interpret my...
Guys,
listen.
stick to the topic.
I know.
Undercut
but he
British
just said,
workers.
What's that about?
Big business has undercut British workers for 30 years. That's why they're addicted to mass immigration, because it undercuts British workers, it floods the economy, keeps their labour costs low and their profits high. Now, it's funny. Why am I explaining this to a Labour person? I used to think the Labour Party cared about the interests of workers.
It does. Everything in this budget is, if you look at it, the number... You can listen, let's stick to the facts.
And we're moving.
Right. The budget was about improvement to the NHS, living standards, energy bills, reducing our nation's debt. It's all set out.
That's and all I'm... at the end of this
interrupted.
Let's
Impossible.
quit there. We need to move on. Right, we're going to stick with immigration because coming up after the break, Donald Trump halts immigration from what he calls the third world after an Afghan immigrant shot 2 National Guardsmen, killing one of them. Well, he's now threatening to strip citizenship from migrants that he deems to be disruptive. Would that undermine the very Western values that he says he's defending? Stick with us after the break.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, Donald Trump has vowed to permanently pause all migration from what he calls third world countries after 2 National Guard members were shot in Washington, D.C. Well, the US president has also announced plans to end all federal benefits and subsidies for non-citizens. At the same time, US diplomats have reportedly been instructed to gather detailed data on crimes committed by migrants, with the president claiming that British voters have been let down on immigration by both Conservative and Labour politicians. Now, Matt, this was pretty much what you were saying before the break. Interesting to see the Americans' take on it. It's a huge decision to basically stop all immigration by particular countries. Do you think he'll face backlash? Do you think he'll actually achieve it?
I think it's great. I think if you compare and contrast President Trump with Keir Starmer, so you have tragically a young member of the National Guard who has been assassinated, murdered by an Afghan migrant who came over after the withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. And what is President Trump's response? It is to look after his own people, to suspend all visas from Afghanistan, now come to the UK. What happened when 21-year-old Thomas Roberts, a man in Bournemouth, was murdered by an Afghan illegal migrant who came into this country on the back of a lorry? What happened in response to that? The UK government and the British state secretly imported thousands of Afghans while gagging the UK press and not telling their own people about it. Compare and contrast.
And what's that, Matt?
I'm with President Trump on this because he actually cares about his people. The people we've got in number 10, this Labour government, clearly they don't care about the British people. They would put the interests of illegal migrants ahead of British people.
I mean, Matt, what Trump does in his own country is absolutely his prerogative. But do you think it's a bit rich, given that his homicide rate, the US homicide rate, is 7 times what it is in the UK, to criticise our government for the human rights of our own people.
Actually, the memo that they've sent out saying that we need to understand what's going on in our society is spot on, because what they've said to a lot of embassies and governments and so on around the world is we want to see the impact of mass immigration on things like rape, sexual assault and crime. Now, here's the thing. The Labour government, they've been doing everything they can to hide that information and statistics from the people out there, tax-paying citizens. Now, why would they do that? If they're so confident that mass immigration is good for everybody, why wouldn't they release all of this data? Why wouldn't they release this information? Because they're blaming everybody of suffering from misinformation while hiding information from them. Maybe Kevin can answer that one.
Can I, first of all, with your permission, Miriam, ask, you just made a comparison between President Trump and the Prime Minister. When was that offence that took place that you alluded to?
2021. So 2021.
Long before a Labour government was in office.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No, it doesn't.
It does matter. So that's point one.
Okay.
Hang on, you asked me another question because you just had a very long go there. Labour...
Bring my egg timer next time.
The Labour... That would be a very good innovation, if you don't mind. The Labour government got into office... very swiftly moving to sort out the prisons with a new prison building programme. We have a Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who's rock hard on law and order. And immigration, we accept that immigration has brought lots of positives to this country, but the lack of control over our borders that occurred when the Conservative Party was in power, it was unacceptable, and we're working very fast and hard to address it with some really good measures. And today, by cooperating with our European allies, we have new measures where the French now are going to do more to tackle boats.
Well, we're going to come on to that. So
Super.
Yeah,
don't spoil the surprise.
Sorry.
Can I just ask? Can I ask one quick question? Just a quick question. This is what I struggle with. We now know that the people coming across in the small boats have included suspected terrorists, Iranian terrorists. We know they've included rapists. We know they've included murderers. We know that they've included men who have gone on to form grooming gangs, rape gangs. Yet still, the Labour government is not only allowing those people into our country, but putting them, unvetted illegal migrants, you are putting them in the heart of our communities.
Matt, this is about
families.
Everybody agrees that illegal immigration is a bad idea, but this is about legal immigration.
Because if they did, they would be fixing the borders. Now, what President Trump is saying is he's saying quite loud.
Matt, this is about legal immigration and whether or not Trump is right to ban visas from all countries. I'm
sorry, he's banning visas in response to a member of his citizen being murdered.
But the suspect came to the US legally. So let's talk about legal immigration, because you asked Kevin...
Miriam, he came from Afghanistan.
Legally,
but he came as part
we will talk about small boats later. But the question is it OK to choose your immigration by culture? That's what we're asking.
If I can finish my point. The Afghan who went into America came from Afghanistan, which is the #1 nationality on the small boats. When we import people, we import cultures. Yes, this is the key point. It doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal.
It does, because governments have absolute choice. It's a political choice to let in people from particular countries on visas. And what Trump is saying, that they will no longer give visas to particular countries. So they are selecting, if you like.
Can I say on that point then, Miriam, that's quite an interesting decision by the President, because presumably there would be other legal applicants who might want to come and work in the American health system, who might want to come and work in their public services, who now can't. I don't think any right-minded person would fail to condemn the horror of what's happened to those two service people. But the question of if you then embark upon a blanket ban, we have to remember that we used a lot of people, our amazing country, when we were fighting wars in the Middle East. A lot of those Afghans served alongside our military, and there are some very senior British military figures who think that we've let down a lot of these people and their families. So it's a lot more complicated than just to characterise whole races or cultures of people. There is a consensus in British politics, I'm afraid to tell everybody, that uncontrolled illegal immigration is bad. There is a consensus about law and order. To suggest that the Labour government doesn't passionately care about those things, it might not suit you, but that's why the Labour government went on a massive programme to rebuild our prisons.
Well, OK, I'm sorry. So President Trump's advisor, Stephen Miller, has issued a statement just before we came on this show saying exactly what I've just said, that everybody seems to be struggling with here, which is that if you import people, you import cultures. We are importing a culture from Afghanistan which is, I'll say it, inferior to our culture, deeply misogynistic and highly violent. So when you see things like the murder of Thomas Roberts or the murder of this National Guard, this poor young woman in America, the reason Donald Trump has said we're now going to suspend visas, the reason we're going to prioritise excluding this group is because it is undermining our own country, our civilization. Nobody in Westminster is willing to do this because what you are doing instead, willingly, is importing more of these cultures from the third world. That's what you're doing. You're not just importing people, you're importing cultures, highly violent, highly combative cultures, which are also bad for British women and girls. We know that Afghans are 20 times more likely to commit rape and sexual assault. We know that.
Right. So should we stop, then, anyone from Afghanistan coming to this country ever, then, in your opinion?
I think we need to, my personal view is we do exactly what President Trump has done. We suspend all migration from countries that are not culturally compatible with ours, that have been shown through evidence and research to be much more prone to criminality and violence.
So
I think that's a no-brainer.
What other countries are on that list then for you?
Eritrea, Somalia, Sudan. I think, the case of Rhiannon White has been quite instructive, a young British mother who was murdered by an illegal migrant from Sudan. Didn't hear much from the Labour government about that. Although I did see 100 Labour-supporting celebrities write an open letter in The Guardian saying if you talk about things like this, you are engaging in far-right racism.
No, I'm not saying that, Matt.
Just quickly, Matt, I just want to put this to you. What do you think of Trump's threat to remove citizenship from people who he calls disruptive?
No, I think it's great. I think this is what we should be doing.
So you think the state should arbitrarily be able to remove citizenship from people who have already been given citizenship?
Citizenship is not the same as belonging. Belonging requires more than a passport and a legal document. We have to have, in the West now, a discussion about what does it mean to be a citizen. People on the left say you just need a passport. And the moment you arrive in the country, you're a citizen. Conservatives say you need an emotional bond with
I'm on the left, I believe that.
OK, fine. So if you violate that, let's say the 7/7 bombers, or let's say Axel Rudakabana, right?
Agreed.
If you openly violate that emotional bond with the country, if you launch a terrorist campaign against your own people, if you terrorise your own people, if you join ISIS and you leave to fight for an army that is specifically hell-bent on destroying the West, that is a point where we have to say, should we tolerate people who do not tolerate us?
But Kevin, is there not a danger that this becomes quite an authoritarian, arbitrary state power? I'm all for locking people up who break the law. But if a government can remove citizenship from the people that it doesn't like, are we not in danger here?
That's the other side of this. But I think if the discussion is about should a government be as hardline as possible on people who commit serious crimes, then I don't think there's any disagreement about that. I think what nobody wants is, I think we're a country in Britain where the government that our people elect, you then sign up to live lawfully in that country, even if you didn't vote for them, and that's like the rule of law and order, and that's quite a British value, and I've got no problem with that. But you're sort of alluding to something slightly more draconian, I think.
Well, yes, it worries me. I'm, as I said, all for hardline policies on law and order, and I think it's absolutely legitimate for any government to decide who they are going to let into their country. I do have a problem with it if someone has already been granted citizenship for the state to then remove that, because I think we're then in danger of state overreach and power, because one government might do it for good reasons, the next might not.
What about the principle of national preference? What if
don't give them citizenship in the first place, 100%. But I think once you've done it, to be retrospectively stripping someone of citizenship, to me, goes into the realm of arbitrary state power.
Well, we have obligations to the national community. If you violate those obligations by murdering your fellow citizens en masse or by declaring war against the state that has given you that. I think you are rejecting, you are repudiating your bond with that nation.
But if a British person does that,
That's
plenty of
my point.
British, then you obviously can't.
Yeah.
So you can't revoke their citizenship. You just have to lock them up. And my concern would be that if someone has gained British citizenship through legitimate means and then later on goes on to commit a crime or do one of those things, they should absolutely be locked up and face the full force of the law. But I worry that actually the state to remove someone's citizenship that's been lawfully gained is definitely state overreach. Don't give people citizenship in the first place. Absolutely, there should be clear rules about that. But I think we should be worried about that state part. Anyway, it's America, not here. So maybe we don't need to worry. Well, coming up, another government U-turn, this time abandoning a manifesto pledge to give every worker the right to claim unfair dismissal from day one. Stay with us.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heavy rain across parts of Greece due to Storm Adele is now moving into Turkey. We could see some high rainfall totals building up. There's going to be some thunder mixed in, even some large hail as well. Further west and a few bits of rain across the southern parts of Italy, elsewhere mostly dry. Much of Spain actually largely dry, similar for southern France, but some wet weather pushing into northwestern parts of Spain and also Portugal, and that will feed further southeastwards through the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. More rain is on its way during the next 24 hours, especially parts of England and Wales, whilst it's going to be clearer and a bit colder further north. We've had an unsettled day for the north of the UK in particular on Friday, but low pressure is clearing away. Behind it we've got a cold northerly wind, a frosty night to come for some parts of northern Scotland under clear spells, albeit with further showers coming into the far north. But elsewhere it's cloudy skies, some outbreaks of rain through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, but here's the main event. Some very wet weather moving in through the night across England and Wales. A soggy start to Saturday. Frost-free, yes, but very wet in places, particularly through the southwest, Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia and the east of England as we begin the day. But that rain is edging its way eastwards. It's going to clear western and southwestern parts, albeit with showers following on behind. And we've got this showery system also affecting parts of Northern Ireland into southern Scotland. But away from there, plenty of fine weather on Saturday morning. Decent blue skies for the north and west of Scotland. A chilly start with frosty conditions here, but otherwise it's a fine day, and that's the best place to be basically throughout Saturday, because elsewhere it's going to be cloudy, a lot of showers around, or if not, some longer spells of wet weather, particularly for eastern England, and that's a slow to clear band of rain, so it could cause some issues as we go through Saturday afternoon. It then returns into northern England with some snow over the Pennines, but to the north, clearer and frostier, and certainly a frosty start to Sunday more widely across the UK, although we've still got this wind in the east of the UK with some outbreaks of showery rain first thing. That moves into the North Sea, plenty of sunshine follows just for one day, because after Sunday, decent sunny day, Monday brings yet more wet weather.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists should use caution on Kincardine Bridge due to high winds. The M4 eastbound at Junction 11 in Reading has delays after a collision, with one lane closed. Drivers on the M61 southbound between Junction 4 and 2 in Bolton face 20-minute delays due to congestion. In Derbyshire, the A38 southbound between the A50 and the A5 132 junction is delayed. Staffordshire's M54 westbound at Junction 2 is seeing 15-minute delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast reports disruptions between Coventry and Rugby, while Cross Country has multiple issues. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Miriam Cates, and joining me until 7 o'clock, I've got my panel, the pollster, academic and GB News presenter Matt Goodwin and political commentator Kevin Craig. Well, Wednesday's budget was full of gloom, but at least it pacified the restive Labour MPs. But the tranquility on government benches lasted barely 24 hours because last night the Prime Minister announced a U-turn on the Employment Rights Bill, ditching the so-called Day One workers' rights. Now, this measure would have given employees full protection against wrongful dismissal from their first day of work rather than after 2 years, as is currently the case. Unions and the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner campaigned hard for this reform, but employers claimed it would substantially increase the risk of taking on new starters. Well, it looks like the business owners have won this particular argument, but there are plenty of controversial measures still in the bill, including the so-called banter ban. Here are some of the changes that are included in the bill. 0 hours workers would have the right to request guaranteed hours. There would be compensation for last-minute shift cancellations, an end to the 3-day statutory sick pay waiting period, fines for employers who fail to keep holiday records, a repeal of the minimum service level strike regulations for essential services, lower thresholds for strike ballots, employers required to take all reasonable steps to protect staff from harassment from third parties. That's the part that's been called the banter ban. Now, panel, this is a pretty deep concession. Kevin, let's start with you for the politics of this, because the Labour left were very keen on this bill. It was a manifesto commitment. The bill is still going ahead. But do you think this watering down is going to cause political problems for the Prime Minister?
No, and I think it's a very sensible development. I was a Labour candidate at the last election, but also have worked in business for 30 years, and the Day One policy always troubled me. I think it's the potential to become a Mickey Takers charter, quite frankly, and I'm really glad to see that it's been removed. I think what's left now is quite a reasonable set of measures, and the Labour government has listened to business on this, and I'm delighted.
Matt, there's still plenty in the bill to worry employers. Let's talk about the banter ban, for example. Obviously, that's not its real name, but this is the idea that employers will be responsible if their staff are harassed by a third party, so somebody who visits the pub. I mean, this is not great for free speech.
No, it's not. And I think, what's left on the table, as Kevin said, put yourself in the shoes of businesses that are going to have to monitor this kind of madness in the workplace. Well, they're also having to deal with, the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world, national insurance tax rises, regulation, minimum wage increases. And then when I hear Labour voices say, well, this is a budget for aspiration, I've not met anybody in business in the last year that thinks this economy is going in the direction that is going to be good for business and entrepreneurs. That's why they're all leaving the country. 16,000 entrepreneurs, millionaires and more are leaving. So look, I think, on the one hand, I agree with Kevin in the sense that there is a bit of common sense somewhere emerging saying we shouldn't clobber businesses with more regulation. But the reality is this is the most anti-business, anti-entrepreneur, anti-prosperity government and budget I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, this is crazy. How are you expecting businesses to make money? How are you expecting prosperity to emerge in this economy? I don't understand how Labour think the numbers are going to add up here.
Well, to answer your question, billions of pounds of investment are coming into this country from some of the businesses I mentioned earlier on the show, Nvidia, JP Morgan Chase. There are in the budget specifically, measures from this Chancellor which don't get talked about as much because it doesn't seem to suit the discussion in some places, to encourage firms to list in London to create more value for our own economy. And there are still, there are many businesses in this country who are optimistic about making money here. And businesses are not immune from wanting to live in a country that works properly, where people are well remunerated, when the NHS is improving. So it all goes in together. But I would totally accept, and one of the reasons why Labour is so down in the polls at the moment is there's no question that in 2025 things are not moving fast enough for people. And the government and Rachel Reeves, and I was in Downing Street last Monday, she understands the demand to to make people feel better.
But Kevin, a lot of the businesses you've mentioned, the big corporations, they can afford these kind of measures. They can afford day one sickness pay rise. They've got a lot of money. But most people work for very small businesses that might employ only 2 or 3 people. If you're suddenly allowed to self-certify and claim sick pay on day one rather than further down the line, that's going to have a huge impact on small businesses.
Yes, but small businesses also, a lot of them on the high street, got relief in this budget, and the government listened to the hospitality sector, who said that people were suffering. But look, I can assure you, I spent a whole day last week in an employment tribunal, and I wanted to bang my head against the table, OK? So I understand it.
Matt, what do you think about the new rules for unions to be able to call strikes with a minority, actually, of those that are eligible to vote?
I think it's all adding up to an economic picture that's obviously deeply worrying. You talk about 2025, but if you look at the forecast that we had this week, and I'll come back to the point about the unions in a second, but the growth forecasts taking us through to 2030 don't go above 1.5%. We have got 5 years baked in of very low growth. GDP per capita, which basically is a measure of living standards, is even lower. It doesn't really get above 1%. So when you look ahead in this country, you're like low growth, high tax, not much productivity at all, declining living standards, like it's there in the OBR report. You can see the numbers for yourself. And so the answer to that, surely, is to free up businesses, free them up from regulation, free them up from tax, inspire them to hire more people, make it easier for businesses to thrive, make it easier for people who work, who contribute to the economy. And you're doing the opposite of those things.
Well, one business that is thriving are the international people smuggling gangs. And coming up, France have agreed to tackle the small boats in the Channel, but only empty ones. So will it really be enough? Stay with us.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Miriam Kate, and keeping me company until 7 o'clock. I've got Matt Goodwin and Kevin Craig, and it's Friday, which means we are now in the Dewberry Tavern. So cheers. Hope you have a great weekend.
To the budget.
And to the budget, indeed.
Need a
Drown our sorrows, exactly. Well, French police are set to begin intercepting small boats in the Channel following growing pressure for tougher action. And according to a document obtained by Le Monde newspaper and signed by 4 northern prefectures, maritime officers will now carry out planned operations to stop the dinghies before the migrants board them. Well, the move follows reports that Sir Keir Starmer wrote to President Emmanuel Macron urging France to do more to curb the crossings, warning that the UK currently has no effective deterrent in the Channel. Well, Matt, that won't be news to you. And one of the first things, of course, that the Labour government did was cancel the Rwanda scheme, which may not have been perfect, but was at least something. Do you think this new French initiative is going to add up?
No, I don't. Keir Starmer has said out loud what everybody in this country has known for a very long time, which is we do not have a deterrent because we are in the European Convention on Human Rights and we have the Human Rights Act. The Rwanda plan ultimately would not have worked because people would have used the ECHR to block their deportation. Look, I mean, the numbers that were released this week by the Home Office, speak for themselves. Labour have deported about 2,200 people. About 60,000 have come in since Labour came to power. In fact, if you look at all of the illegal migrants since 2018, both Labour and Tory governments have deported 3.5%. Now, this is the same British state, same government that wants us to give it our data and take on digital ID and trust it when it can't even secure the borders. And the hotel use, before somebody over there says it, the hotel use in the data this week is also up 23%.
But on the boats, though, Kevin, the Belgians have actually been extraordinarily successful. They do intercept the boats. They have concrete blocks by the beaches. They have night vision goggles, and they have reduced their illegal crossings to almost zero. So if the French get their act together, do you think they might actually have some success?
Yeah, and I hope this is the start. I mean, this is a really positive development, and it shows that the government is really serious about tackling this, and it comes from dialogue and grown-up relationships with our European partners. The government is clear. They say it almost every week, and they've been in for 16 months after 14 years. The numbers are too high on the small boat crossings, and they will not rest. And so the new French measures is one arm of it. There have been hundreds of boats seized on the other side of the Channel. There have been a number of crossings intercepted. But again, an emotionally intelligent Labour MP or minister will say it's not happening fast enough for people here so far.
Because the underlying cause is not being dealt with.
Well, there's disagreement about that analysis.
Just before we come back, I will come back to you, Matt, but I'm just going to bring in the audience because we do have a poll today, You Decide poll, that GB News viewers can vote in. We're asking who should take responsibility for stopping the small boats. Should it be France or Britain? So far, 35% of you have said Britain and 65% have said France. Now, Matt, one of the problems that the French foresee is that although they may now have permission to stop the boats, to get into the water and intercept them, the French gendarmes are very worried about their own personal safety because if there's 100 young men in a boat who have obviously crossed Europe, who maybe have engaged in criminal activity already, they're obviously quite vulnerable. 5 or 6 French policemen, how are they supposed to stop the boat?
Well, I've been on those beaches and I've watched the people getting into the boats. This is all surface-level stuff. This won't actually deal with the crisis. We need to remove the incentive as to why people are coming in the first place, and we need an active deterrent. That means we don't give people who break our laws endless welfare and put them in nice luxury hotels, which the people watching this show have to pay £15 billion for.
Luxury hotels?
Yeah, that's right, like the 4-star Hilton Hotel in London that the guy from Egypt was staying in before he raped the British woman in Hyde Park. Like that kind of hotel, Kevin. Not only that, but we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We need to repeal Tony Blair's Human Rights Act, which would then neuter the activist legal class that we have, which is more interested in the rights of people who are breaking our laws and the rights of people who actually live in this country, pay taxes in this country, contribute to this country and built this country.
But that is precisely why the Labour Home Secretary has just in recent weeks introduced a whole raft of reforms to the system for which she was widely praised in terms of toughening it up, getting people back quicker after they arrive. And the way that the Labour government deals with these things is much more measured and less extreme in its language and almost hysterical at times is the nature of the debate.
No,
but the language, I didn't say that, but the language of it, whereas Labour is doing a whole raft of things, and the numbers, and asylum, the cost of the money being spent on asylum hotels is coming down, and that is the fact. It's come down over the last year.
Hotel use is up 23%.
But the money being spent has gone down.
£15 billion. £15 billion. We had one in, one out. We had Smash the Gangs. We had the deal with the French.
We had 4 people sent to Rwanda under the Tories.
Guys, we are out of time. Thank you so much for the lively discussion. All the best to the French. Good luck. Let's see if they can solve the problems like the Belgians have. But up next, we have Lee Anderson. Have a great weekend. That's it from me.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. More rain is on its way during the next 24 hours, especially parts of England and Wales, whilst it's going to be clearer and a bit colder further north. We've had an unsettled day for the north of the UK in particular on Friday, but low pressure is clearing away. Behind it, we've got a cold northerly wind. A frosty night to come for some parts of northern Scotland under clear spells, albeit with further showers coming into the far north. But elsewhere, it's cloudy skies. Some outbreaks of rain through Northern Ireland, southern Scotland. But here's the main event. Some very wet weather moving in through the night across England and Wales. A soggy start to Saturday. Frost-free, yes, but very wet in places, particularly through the southwest, Wales, the Midlands, East Anglia and the east of England as we begin the day. But that rain is edging its way eastwards. It's going to clear western and southwestern parts, albeit with showers following on behind. And we've got this showery system also affecting parts of Northern Ireland into southern Scotland. But away from there, plenty of fine weather on Saturday morning. Decent blue skies for the north and west of Scotland. A chilly start with frosty conditions here, but otherwise, it's a fine day, and that's the best place to be, basically, throughout Saturday, because elsewhere it's going to be cloudy. A lot of showers around, or if not, some longer spells of wet weather, particularly for eastern England, and that's a slow to clear band of rain, so it could cause some issues as we go through Saturday afternoon. It then returns into northern England with some snow over the Pennines, but to the north, clearer and frostier, and certainly a frosty start to Sunday more widely across the UK, although we've still got this wind in the east of the UK with some outbreaks of showery rain first thing. That moves into the North Sea, plenty of sunshine follows, just for one day, because after Sunday, decent sunny day, Monday brings yet more wet weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation, because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A broken down vehicle on the A9 southbound at Achterrade causes restrictions. High winds affect the A55 Britannia Bridge. A breakdown on the M62 eastbound in Calderdale closes one lane. In Cheshire East, the M6 northbound has 2 lanes closed between junctions 16 and 17, causing 40-minute delays. Delays also affect the A38 southbound near Derbyshire. The M54 westbound in Staffordshire has delays. All lanes of the M4 eastbound at junction 11 are closed, causing a 50-minute delay. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Coventry and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus text to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is